Half a day. I'm Jolene Tovis, and this is Coffee with the Candidates. Joining me today is on the Democratic ticket is Chris Carillo. He is running for Senator for the 36th legislature. Welcome, Chris. How are you today?
I'm great, Jolene. Thanks for having me, and thanks to Sorensen for providing this opportunity for us to have a forum.
All right. Now, I wanted to go ahead and start off by saying, I know that you have already worked within the legislature as an employee for one of the senators. Being that you're that close to the legislature, what are some of the things that you want to see change right out of the gate if you are elected as a senator?
Well, a few things that I think is important to make sure that Guam is a better place is, number one, we need to update our technology and make sure that we can get better services to the people using technology. I told a story a few days ago to my friend that I went home for my dad's funeral, and I walked into Safeway supermarket and I seen a kiosk where people would go and renew their car registration, and also renew their driver's licenses and some other government services. So things like that are relatively cheap ideas that we can implement to make government services more accessible to everyone. I also would like to see if we can work with the private sector to get more of their employees on affordable health care. And one of the ways that that's done is through cooperatives that are subsidized by the government. And, what we do is we provide a tax incentive or a tax break for people for companies that join into a cooperative to provide the most people in their industry with affordable health care. So those are two things that I'm really concerned about, is access to affordable health care and integration of new technology to improve government services.
All right. Now, the current legislature, the 35th legislature, is a majority Democratic legislature. Now, if the legislature were to have a majority of the opposite party to which you identify with, how would you negotiate around bipartisan lines?
Well, certainly any great idea that anyone has, right? Whether it's Democrat or Republican, and regardless of the majority, needs to be addressed. And what we need to do is work across the aisle, stop the partisan stuff. A lot of times what happens is things get bogged down in just everyday mundane press releases that they send out, and everybody takes a position, and then they're stuck to the side, and no one wants to come. Really, the solutions that we need to make are normally closer to the middle, right? A lot of people are, oh no, we got to do this on this side, and the other side is, no, we have to do that on the other side. And really, the solution is much closer to the center. So one thing that I've always been able to do is work cooperatively and collaboratively with others to make sure that we can get ideas done. And I come from a place a long time ago when I was working with the current auditor, BJ Cruz, that what we tried to do was even bring in the minority when the Republicans were the minority, and we'd bring them in, we'd have discussions, we'd find out how we can make our legislation better. And it led to a pretty high percentage of bills being passed when we were at the former vice speaker's office. So I'm able to work collaboratively with people, and I think that as long as we don't make it a personal thing and we just stick to issues, we can certainly fix some issues going forward.
All right. Now, of course, we are in the midst of a pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and the big questions or the big things that have been circulating around is accountability and transparency within Guam. Now, can you share with us what is your stance on transparency and accountability on Guam, and how would you improve that?
Okay, well, look, accountability and transparency is always important in any government, right? Sometimes I think that what happens with the public is they feel like things aren't accountable or aren't transparent. And, so what we need to do is find a way to make sure that we are providing checks and balances to the administration. I may be a Democrat and I may be friendly with the administration. However, if I see a wrong, I'll be certain that I'm going to have to call it out, whether it be my best friend or, the lieutenant governor or the governor's office, any agencies, because it's important to provide integrity to the branch, that we not only go after people who we don't like, but the people that we do like need to also be checked by us, because that's the definition of integrity, is to make sure you check your friends even more thoroughly than you check those who are your opponents. So that's what I would do.
All right. Now, if you were elected senator, what would be one of your first initiatives, legislative initiatives, coming out of the gate?
Well, the first thing that I want to do, and I've already been working on this in my time in the legislature, is trying to make sure that we take the 50,000 private sector employees and provide them with good health care. One of the ways that they tried to do that in 2010 with Obamacare was to try to have a public option. A public option was where private companies could join up with the government if they signed up by a certain date and join into the government's healthcare insurance. Now, we may not be able to get there right away, but initially we can help and use some of the $30 million taxpayer subsidies we use to subsidize the hospital for all of the care that's provided to people without medical care. If we could take some of that money, reprogram it, and provide tax incentives for small businesses, which would, number one, help them grow, and number two, allow them to provide health insurance to their employees. Most small businesses, and I'm a small business owner also. My wife and I employ 7 people, and we want to give them health insurance. And what my wife has done is she's gone out and she's looking for healthcare insurance. We tried several different insurers, and it's just unaffordable. So one of the things that we need to do is follow the program that's started by the Guam Chamber of Commerce or the Women's Chamber of Commerce or the Guam Contractors Association, where they take all of their members and get them into a cooperative that they procure the health insurance based on the amount of members. So just for a second, let's imagine, right? Let's say there's 6,000 employees in Tumon that are part-time workers, banquet workers, making 40 hours every 2 weeks or whatever. Then they have another job where they're doing the same thing, maybe at a restaurant or whatever. These people aren't going to qualify for healthcare. So what we need to do is take those employees that work for these industries that aren't able to provide them healthcare insurance, because it's simply unaffordable for a company the size of mine, 7 employees, to provide healthcare insurance, right? So we need to get all of the restaurants, all of the bars, the hotel industry, cottage industries that we have, get them all in one pool, work it collaboratively with the chamber and Guam Contractors Association and the Women's Chamber, and provide them some tax incentives so that we can get healthcare to the masses. Because if the more people we have in healthcare, the better the services will be and the lower the premiums will be. It's just a math equation. The more people paying into the pie, the less everyone has to pay, and the better pie we can have because we can afford the better ingredients. I guess that's the best analogy I can make. So that would be one of the first things that I want to do.
Okay. Now, in light of the COVID pandemic, there has employees, essential private sector employees, to get compensation for their services and putting themselves on the line during this pandemic. Now, we've seen government employees receive compensation. What is your stance on private sector employees, essential workers during this COVID, receiving some sort of federal compensation, and how would you push for that?
Well, okay. So that's a complex issue with a couple different layers. First of all, the legislature as a whole, as a body, has no control over any federal funds. And it's explicitly stated in the CARES Act that local appropriations cannot be made of this money. However, I do support the frontliners, the nurses and the doctors and, you know, the food workers and everyone that was there in the front line to make sure to get compensated. To make sure that they get compensated and, you know, the important thing is just to try our best to do what we can. Now, the governor is under a lot of intense pressure to try and make sure that we get some relief to those frontline workers. It's just a complex issue that it's gonna take a while to figure out, and we got to work with the business community and see how we can help make them whole.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, my last question to you would be, name one decision senators made in the past 4 years that you disagree with.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I disagree with has been the constant push to reduce the BPT, and I'll tell you why. Okay, it's a difficult thing to discuss, but the BPT is a lifeblood for the government. It's how we're able to get our general fund up so we can provide the critical services that we so desperately need to provide to our constituents and to the residents of the island. But if we took away $58 million, which is the 1%, if we took away $58 million, the likelihood that we would have to fire 3,000 to 4,000 employees is very great. That's number one. Number two, you can never get that money to get back into the economy. When you're paying government salaries, those government workers are able to go out and support their families and pay their bills. And in my opinion, you can never make an economy better by cutting. You make the economy better by investing. So if we take that cash and we provide subsidies to small businesses so that they can grow, that way we can make, I mean, it's a closed economy right now. We don't have tourists coming in. All we have is the local spend. So if you take away 20% of the government spend, what happens then? What happens to the $100 million?
And I'm sorry, we are running out of time at this moment. I thank you for answering my questions, and I wish you the best of luck in the senatorial race. Don't go anywhere. All right.
Thank you very much, Jolene. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in and keep watching Sorensen. And thank you very much for your guys for the opportunity once again.
All right. Well, there you have it. Don't go anywhere. We have more Coffee with the Candidates coming up.